Hello everybody, this is Mike History 2. So I know it's been a month since I even opened the document which has the script of this video, but today I will finally be getting back to my top 10 worst people in history because we really need to finish this series. And so we only have two people left, and as you can tell from the title, second worst person in history is Mao Zedong. So Mao Zedong was born on December 26, 1893 in Shaoshan, Hunan, China. His father, Mao Yichang, was a formerly poor peasant who would become one of the richest farmers in Shaoshan. Mao's father was strict and would beat him and his three siblings, the boys Min and Tan, as well as an adopted girl, Jian. Mao's mother, Wen Qimei, was a Buddhist who tried to temper her husband's strict attitude. Mao too became a Buddhist, but abandoned his faith in his mid-teenage years. From age 8, Mao was sent to Shaoshan Primary School. Learning the value systems of Confucianism, he later admitted that he didn't enjoy the classical Chinese texts preaching Confucian morals, instead favoring popular novels like Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Water Margin. At age 13, Mao finished primary education, and his father united him in an arranged marriage to the 17-year-old Luo Yixu, thereby uniting the families. However, Mao refused to recognize her as his wife and became a fierce critic of arranged marriage, so he temporarily moved away. While working on his father's farm, Mao read a lot and developed a political consciousness from Chen Guanying's booklet, which lamented the deterioration of Chinese power and argued for the adoption of representative democracy. Interested in history, Mao was inspired by the military ability and nationalism of George Washington and Napoleon. His political views were shaped by Gelao-Hui-led protests, which erupted following a famine in Changsha, the capital of Hunan. Mao supported the protesters' demands, but the army suppressed the dissenters and executed their leaders. The famine spread to Shaoshan, where starving peasants seized his father's grain. He disapproved of their actions as morally wrong, but sympathized with the situation. At age 16, Mao moved to a higher primary school in nearby Dongshan, where he was bullied because of his peasant background. In 1911, Mao began middle school in Changsha. Revolutionary sentiment was strong in the city, where there was widespread hatred towards Emperor Puyi's absolute monarchy, and many were advocating republicanism. The Republicans' figurehead was Sun Yat-sen, who led the Tongmenghui Society. In Changsha, Mao was influenced by Sun's newspaper, The People's Independence, and called for Sun to become president in a school essay. As a symbol of rebellion against the Manchu monarch, Mao and a friend cut off their queue pigtails, a sign of submission to the emperor. Inspired by Sun's republicanism, the army rose up across southern China, sparking the Xinhai Revolution. Changsha's governor fled, leaving the city in republican control. Supporting the revolution, Mao joined the rebel army as a private soldier, but was not actually involved in the fighting. The northern provinces remained loyal to the emperor, and hoping to avoid a civil war, Sun proclaimed provisional president by his supporters, compromised with the monarchist general Yuan Shikai. The monarchy was abolished, creating the Republic of China, but the monarchist Yuan became president. The revolution over, Mao resigned from the army in 1912 after 6 months as a soldier. Around this time, Mao discovered socialism from a newspaper article, proceeding to read pamphlets by Jiang Kanghu, the student founder of the Chinese Socialist Party. And although Mao was interested by the idea, he wasn't actually convinced yet. Now, over the next few years, Mao Zedong studied independently, and he spent much time in Changsha's library, reading core works of classical liberalism such as Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations and Montesquieu's The Spirit of the Laws, as well as the works of Western scientists and philosophers such as Charles Darwin, John Stuart Mill, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Herbert Spencer. He was inspired by Friedrich Paulsen, whose liberal emphasis on individualism led Mao to believe that strong individuals were not bound by moral codes, but should strive for the greater good. Yeah, let's see how that'll end up. And that the end justifies the means. Okay, yeah, that definitely explains a lot. His father saw no use in his son's intellectual pursuits, cut off his allowance, and forced him to move into a hostel for the poor. Mao wanted to become a teacher and enrolled at the Fourth Normal School of Changsha, which soon merged with the First Normal School of Changsha. Befriending Mao, Professor Yang Chengji urged him to read a radical newspaper, New Youth, the creation of his friend Chen Tuxiu, a dean at Peking University. Although Chinese nationalist, Chen argued that China must look to the West to cleanse itself of superstition and autocracy. Mao published his first article in New Youth in April 1917, instructing readers to increase their physical strength to serve the revolution. He joined the Society for the Study of Wang Fuqi, a revolutionary group founded by people who wished to copy the philosopher Wang Fuqi. Who knew? That's why it was called the study of Wang Fuqi. Anyways, in his first school year, Mao befriended an older student, Xiao Zicheng, and together they went on a walking tour of Hunan, begging and writing literary couplets to obtain food. Well, you see, he was poor after all. He organized the Association for Student Self-Government and led protests against school rules. In spring 1917, he was elected to command the Students' Volunteer Army. Since when do students have an army? Anyways, set up to defend the school from marauding soldiers. Okay, that's why. Increasingly interested in the techniques of war, he took a keen interest in World War I and also began to develop a sense of solidarity with workers. Along with other young revolutionaries, they formed the Renovation of the People's Study Society in April 1918 to debate Chen Tuxiu's ideas. Desiring transformation, the society gained 70 to 80 members, many of whom would later join the Communist Party. Mao graduated in June 1919. Mao moved to Beijing, where his mentor Yang Chengji had taken up a job at Peking University. Yang secured him a job as assistant to the university librarian Li Tachao, an early Chinese communist. Li authored a series of New Youth articles on the October Revolution in Russia, which if you want to learn more about, you can watch my videos about Trotsky versus Stalin Part 2. Becoming more and more radical, Mao was influenced by Peter Kropotkin's anarchism, but joined Li's study group and developed rapidly towards communism during the winter of 1919. Paid a low wage, Mao lived in a cramped room with 7 other students. Mao's time in Beijing ended in the spring of 1919 when he traveled to Shanghai with friends who were preparing to leave for France. He did not return to Shaoshan, where his parents were terminally ill, and so his mom died in October 19, with her husband dying in January 1920. On May 4th, 1919, students in Beijing gathered at the Gate of Heavenly Peace to protest the Chinese government's weak resistance to Japanese expansion in China. Patriots were outraged at the influence given to Japan in the 21 Demands in 1915, and the betrayal of China in the Treaty of Versailles, where Japan was allowed to receive territories in Shantung, which had been surrendered by Prussia. These demonstrations ignited the nationwide May 4th movement and fueled the New Culture movement, which blamed China's diplomatic defeats on social and cultural backwardness. In Changsha, Mao had begun teaching history at the Xiuye Primary School and organizing protests against the governor of Hunan province, Cheng Jingyao. In late May, Mao co-founded the Hunanese Student Association with Ho Shuheng and Teng Chungxia, organizing the student strike for June, and in July 1919 began production of a weekly radical magazine, Xiang River Review. Chang blamed such a typical name. Anyways, Chang banned the Student Association, but Mao continued publishing after assuming editorship of the liberal magazine New Hunan and offered articles in popular local newspaper Justice. Several of these advocated feminist views, calling for the liberation of women in Chinese society, since Mao was influenced by his forced arranged marriage. So you see, guys, he was actually a good guy. Mao found that his articles had achieved a level of fame across the revolutionary movement and set about finding support and overthrowing Cheng. Coming across newly translated communist literature by Thomas Kirkup, Karl Kautsky, and of course Marx and Engels themselves, notably the Communist Manifesto, he came under the increasing influence of communism but still hadn't become one officially yet. Mao visited Tianjin, Qinnan, and Chufu before moving to Shanghai, where he met Chen Tuxiu, noting that Chen's adoption of Marxism impressed him. In Shanghai, Mao met an older teacher of his, Yi Peiji, a revolutionary and member of the Kuomintang, which was gaining increasing support and influence. Yi introduced Mao to General Tan Yingkai, a senior Kuomintang member. Tan was plotting to overthrow Cheng, and Mao helped him by organizing the Changsha students. In June 1920, Tan led his troops into Changsha, and Cheng fled. That's a lot of Chengs. Anyways, the Communist Party of China was founded by Chen Tuxiu and Li Tachao in Shanghai in 1921 as a study society and informal network. Mao set up a Changsha branch, also establishing a branch of the Socialist Youth Corps. Opening a bookstore under the control of his New Cultural Book Society, its purpose was to spread revolutionary literature throughout Hunan. By 1921, small communist groups existed in Shanghai, Beijing, Changsha, Wuhan, Guangzhou, and Xinan. It was decided to hold a central meeting, which began in Shanghai on July 23, 1921. The first session of the National Congress of the Communist Party of China was attended by 13 delegates, Mao included. After the authorities sent a police spy to the Congress, the delegates moved to a boat on South Lake near Chiasing in Zhejiang to escape detection. Although Russian and Comintern delegates attended, the First Congress ignored Lenin's advice to accept a temporary alliance between the communists and the bourgeois Democrats, who also advocated national revolution. Instead, they stuck to the orthodox communist belief that only the urban proletariat could lead a socialist revolution. Mao was now party secretary for Hunan Station in Changsha, and to build the party there, he followed a variety of tactics. In August 1921, he founded a self-study university, through which readers could gain access to revolutionary literature. He joined the YMCA mass education movement to fight illiteracy, though he edited the textbooks to include radical sentiments. He continued organizing workers to strike against the administration of Hunan Governor Chao Heng-ti. Mao claimed that he missed the July 1922 Second Congress of the Communist Party in Shanghai because he lost the address. Adopting Lenin's advice, the delegates agreed to an alliance with the bourgeois Democrats of the Kuomintang for the good of the national revolution. Communist Party members joined the Kuomintang hoping to push his politics more left. Mao enthusiastically agreed with this decision. At the Third Congress of the Communist Party in Shanghai in June 1923, the delegates reaffirmed their commitment to working with the Kuomintang. Supporting this position, Mao was elected to the party committee, moving to Shanghai. In late 1924, Mao returned to Shaoshan, perhaps to recover from an illness. He found that the peasants were increasingly restless and some had seized land from wealthy landowners to found communes. This convinced him of the revolutionary potential of the peasantry, an idea advocated by the Kuomintang leftists but not the communists. In the winter of 1925, Mao fled to Guangzhou after his revolutionary activities attracted the attention of Chao's regional authorities. When party leader Sun Yat-sen died in May 1925, he was succeeded by Chiang Kai-shek, also known as Chiang Kai-shek, who moved to exclude the left Kuomintang and the communists. Mao nevertheless supported Chiang's National Revolutionary Army, which embarked on the Northern Expedition attack in 1926 on warlords. In the wake of this expedition, peasants rose up, appropriating the land of the wealthy landowners, who in many cases were killed. Such uprisings angered senior Kuomintang figures, who were themselves landowners, emphasizing the growing class and ideological divide within the revolutionary movement.